Okay, good. So urban spaces are increasingly monitored and regulated through technologies, from datafication through air pollution sensors and heat cameras mapping human movement, and even do-it-yourself monitoring by grassroots groups. We have dark design or smart cities. The city is, however, not a computer, as Shannon Matten has argued, and data and technologies are not just adopted top-down, but they are influenced by the very they influence the very way of comprehending the city and even civic engagement. Jennifer Gabrus has shown that there are many different processes and issues at stake with these datafication and technologies. From the act of making observations, the automation and optimization of practices and systems, to the processes of datafication of aspects of everyday life, and how participation and transformation through data all have wide-ranging socio-political effects. So some of the question we'll address here is something like, how are these data and technologies used and conceived by various professions like policemen, planners, politicians, or related professionals? And how do these data and technology relate to people's experiences of space and notions of urban citizenship? What even counts as legitimate data? And when and what does data and datafication actually do to cities? These are some of the questions that we'll address in the conference. The conference comes in part as an extension of a series of conferences and activities here in Denmark through the Danish Research Network for the Anthropology of Technology that ended last year, and which materialized in a book called The Palgrave Handbook of Anthropology of Technology, published this year. Quite expensive, but also very interesting and large book. While these activities have included a diverse range of topics, we wanted in this conference to focus more in detail on ethnographic research exploring data and technologies in an urban context. Thereby, we focus on examples and theories of the politics of everyday life and data and technologies, how sensors and sensors make cities and civic society, or how the processes of creating data on urban life is fraught with social premises, politics, and technological constraints. In other words, what can we learn about technologies and the use and production of data when honing in on an urban context, and vice versa, what can we learn about urban context by exploring technologies and datafication as a lens? There we go. Our own way into the themes have been twofold. So firstly, the three of us form the core of a project funded by the Independent Research Fund Denmark called Making Sense of Urban Air. It's also the Independent Research Fund that generously funds this conference and the lunches and dinners and so on. So thank you to them. The project which Rasmus will present from tomorrow, Making Sense of Urban Air, in short began as a study of how Google's project AirView offers the potential to measure emerging pollutant indicators, such as black carbon or ultrafine particles, and thus contribute to public welfare by optimizing both urban planning and citizen behavior. Focus is on how data of emergent pollutants contribute to set in motion novel urban air politics. However, measuring air pollution is not as simple as it sounds, but entails much uncertainty and negotiations of what counts as knowledge and pollution, thus showing how different actors have different understandings of air quality. With this conference, we wanted to take the interest in production of air pollution data to a broader level and explore the ways data and sensor technologies are made sense of and deployed by actors with various professions and working towards working with the urban space. So that's one line of kind of a background into it. The other line is less oriented at the monitoring aspects of the city, but looking at the ways technologies are implemented to create, for instance, more safe, accommodating, convenient, or so-called livable cities for the users and residents. For instance, I've explored the role of lighting in shaping urban atmospheres, which in large part have turned from kind of surveillance lighting, where the main point is to make people able to see or be seen. And I love this picture I took in Tensta in Stockholm, which has the surveillance camera sticker. It has the police car, and then these lighting spots on an area that they find problematic in terms of crime. That's a kind of surveillance paradigm materialized here. But there's been a shift towards a more scenographic lighting, which is not so much about making people seen, but about making people feel something. This is part of a process of renegotiating the sense of the city, renormalizing what urban atmosphere is supposed to feel like. So this way into the conference theme focuses more on how users and residents understand and inhabit environments that are shaped through technologies or various digital technologies like apps and so on. So many different strands of theories have inspired us, and some is from the phenomenological, non-representational or critical urban theories of space, and some of our interest is in science and technology studies. And it appears that the topic of urban data and technologies does not adhere to one of these kind of main frames of reference. It's also evident in both the presentations and also in the keynotes that they have very different perspectives on it. And what we hope here is also that this theoretical diversity is an opportunity to be inspired rather than us sticking trenches and saying, well, phenomenology is the only way into understanding the city. Our first keynote speaker is Alison Powell, and she has shown how there has been a move from a dominant vision of the smart city as, quote, focusing on communicative city, equipped with access to information, toward an idea of the pervasively connected city where data can be activated to increase efficiency, unquote. Such processes of transforming aspects of everyday life into data, she argues, is part of what she calls big data optimized city, where data is processed to optimize things like transport, city service delivery, or civic participation. Often with the acceptance of the users, of course. But data collection is not only administered by the state, but also comes from city society or civic society, where, for instance, do-it-yourself sensors, like also Jennifer Gabrys explores, has been instrumental in going against entrenched ways of considering air pollution via stationary monitoring stations. As Alison also notes, she says, quote, observing the world through the use of environmental sensors contributes to data-informed civic conversations and extends the knowledge of urban spaces into new realms, unquote. So this may lead to alternative urban futures than the ones that was just aimed at optimization. Also, Anders Madsen, our second speaker, has also noted that there's a tendency that, quote, data-driven urbanism has become entangled with smart city and thereby practiced in a way that prioritizes control over physical objects and downplays the human, semantic, and political aspects of data, unquote. He and his colleagues call for this focus on physical objects he calls the hard city sensing framework, which obviously have a range of drawbacks. Instead, they argue that there's a, quote, the emergence of a digital city that alters the empirical potential for data-driven urbanism, which they frame around the notion of soft city sensing that, as he also admits, also entails a range of methodological concerns, but nonetheless can be used in phases of urban planning where, for instance, urban problems are defined. And we also look very much forward to hearing more about his work on soft city sensing. And our third keynote speaker, Kim Fortun, has on her part contributed to revealing how people in different geographic regions and organization, especially in urban industrial centers of India and the US, how they deal with environmental problems, health risk, and major disasters. This includes recently an attention to air pollution as a slow-moving disaster that is difficult to sense, both bodily and through digital technologies. Yet it is still a disaster which characterizes many cityscapes. New understandings of the significance of air pollution have transformed approaches to public health, and thus challenge city governments, among others, partly to be concerned about compound, intersectional vulnerabilities and what can be thought of as combo disasters, resulting from the ways problems in one system, that can be, for instance, political, ecological, or technological, interlace with and exacerbate problems in other systems. Fortune has created 3 digital research platforms that share work with other academics and the public on environmental disaster preparedness and response, air quality crisis, and epidemic incidents of asthma. Yet her work remains ethnographically grounded also when it comes to tracing air pollution. And we also look very much forward to hearing more about that tomorrow and how and what it can tell us about the city in late industrialism. So with these introductory perspectives and thought, I think it's time to open the conference and encourage you to engage in the discussions or just be inspired and sit back and listen. The program is built up around the 3 keynotes, who each have 45 minutes and then 15 minutes for discussion, whereas the other presentations have 20 minutes and 10 minutes for discussion, and then we have time for mingling during the breaks. There are free lunch for all, which will be served on the first floor in the canteen this way out, around the corner, and coffee and tea and other refreshment. I think you've already seen out in the outside the atrium. And for the presenters, we'll have a dinner at Madklubben at Vesterbro, and tables are reserved for 6 o'clock. Toilets in the 4 corners, and you should have been notified, the presenters at least, that we are recording the presentations, but not the discussions. Do let us know if that raises any concerns. And I was told to say that we aim to make the videos available under the auspices of ITU's new upcoming Center for Climate IT, which will be officially launched December 7th. If you have any interest in this, then let us know and we'll keep you posted, and that will be Stefan and not me. Good, so welcome, and also we'll welcome our first speaker, Alison.